name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. After the prayer of a righteous man, it did not rain on earth for a long time. For a long, long time. And this righteous man came to a widow, and you know the story. She had just a little bit of oil and a little bit of meal, and she was, because of the harshness of the famine, ready to die. She was going to make a couple of cakes, one for herself and one for her son. And he said, please make one for me also. The woman did so, and in doing, God blessed the oil and the meal, and famine did not overtake his family, but the boy died. And the woman said, oh my Lord, I've been kept alive for this moment. I would rather have starved and finished my life with my son in my arms than to see him this way. And what is the meaning of this? So that great man, he prayed and he laid his body over him, and he restored him to his mother. This is a story of another type of restoration. The barrenness of the soul of this woman cannot be compared even to the 3.5-year drought the earth experienced, because she had, even if there had been some hope, it had been removed by the death of everyone around her. She was alone, completely alone. When a woman in that day lost her husband, she stayed upon the arm and used the strength of her strong son. But when he too perished, she had nothing at all. She was completely empty. Completely empty. And so it was a harshness that the Lord himself, he couldn't bear. And he looked upon her and he had compassion. And he said, don't weep. Don't weep. Save your tears. And he touched the coffin. The people stopped. And then he told the boy, arise. Arise. Can you imagine now the way in which the earth received the rain after that long period of drought? Can you feel the embrace of heaven? The embrace of heaven in that mother's heart when she felt the softness of compassion, the softness of our Lord's compassion enter in. Can you imagine the embrace? More tender than any embrace any human being has ever felt. To receive that kind of thing. The earth knows who is the Lord. The rain, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything obey the Lord. They know who is their master. And although we do not think of certain things as having sentience, yet they know the Lord. The Lord declared himself of these children upon his entrance into the holy Jerusalem. If these children's voices are stifled, if they are silenced, the rocks will declare the glory of God. Can you imagine this woman? Can you imagine receiving the grace from heaven in this way? It was more powerful than her son, because once she felt this descend upon her, it was like a cloak of certainty. Everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. I wish this for all of you. I wish this for all of you in your lives. Not that you would experience drought first, because there's a way to experience the grace of the Lord without having to go through tribulation. But certainly when you have gone through tribulation, it breaks down the ego. A person once said that the vanity of some people is so unbearable because it competes with my own vanity. But when you have been broken, either by yourself in reflection and meditation and introspection, and you have broken down that surface and shallow layer of self-righteousness, self-fulfillment, self-aggrandizement, if you have broken this through Matanya, then the Lord does not have to see you first in tribulation before He can extend His hand. As a matter of fact, His hand is extended now, right now, to each and every one of us. In this moment, if you don't see it, it's because something is before your eyes that is ugly by comparison. Whatever it is you wish, whatever it is you long for, whatever it is you think is going to make your life so bountiful, it's an ugliness compared to the extended hand of the Lord. And all we have to do is to put our hand in His hand. That's all we have to do. He will lead us. He will lead us. My grandson, 4 years and not quite a half, he's learned to interlace his fingers with mine. He didn't have enough span in his hand. You know what I'm talking about? Interlacing the fingers, going like this. Most little kids hold like that. But when you get to be a little bit older, you interlace. And when you interlace, there is a more intimate bond hand to hand. You have more sensual feedback when you interlace fingers. I can feel each one of his fingers, each one of the knuckles closest to his palm. I can feel everything. And I know now he feels, as he's able to hold my hand in this way, he's feeling stronger, he's feeling more powerful, he's feeling quite the man. And when he walks with his chest out, he takes a big stride, he's got a smile on his face. Imagine your hand in the hand of the Lord. Who could hurt you? Who could do anything to you? Who could insult you? No one could do anything. They'd be powerless. Satan and all of his devices powerless. The only time when Satan has the ability to hurt you is when you have let go of the hand. Sometimes Joshua runs away. Sometimes Joshua imperils himself by doing silly things. My daughter and I were chasing after him last Thursday night when we had our celebration here at the church. We were afraid that he might trip. He was wearing a Superman costume, but it didn't empower him. He was not faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, nor was he able to leap tall buildings with a single bound. And we were afraid that he might trip over the deterrent mounds that are in the parking lot to allow cars to park appropriately. And he imperiled himself. But when he has his hand in my hand, or his mother's hand, or his grandmother's hand, or in the hand of any one of you here in the church, he's not going to fall. Because you will see the danger ahead and you will prevent him from falling. You will prevent him from hurting himself. You will be the one who in the place of Christ leads him clearly through all danger. And I tell you this because when you deny yourself the ability to hold the Lord's hand, you put yourself in danger willingly. Let's remove all of the ego. Let's seek humility. And let's ask the Lord at all turns to guide us. And then, after having prayed that prayer, have the confidence that He will. Sometimes we only value a trip in terms of how the trip pleasures our preconception. Sometimes we think, oh, this is a bad journey I'm on. But this is a good journey. What made it good or what made it bad? Did you ever stop to consider? But when the Lord takes you on a journey, even if it leads you to a valley filled with shadows, filled with death on every side, what then? Are you going to be afraid? Even though enemies surround you, are you going to be afraid? I don't want to be on this journey. Well, that's not what David said. He said, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. This is the kind of faith. And look at the life that David had. Look how he ran from Saul. Look how he loved Saul's son, Jonathan. Look how he was kicked out of the temple. Look how his life was threatened many times by many things. Think about the time when he was just a young shepherd boy and the lion and the bear came to take the sheep away, and how alone he had to defend with only a wooden staff and sling. And yet David said these things. Who is the most powerful one? He said in the Bible, Saul has killed his thousands, David has killed his 10,000s. Who is more powerful than David? And yet David reached out for the hand of the Lord at every turn, except in once. And Nathan the prophet got him for that, for which we have the 50th Psalm. But David is a good example of how, when you put your ego aside, you are aided by the Lord. And when you put your ego in front and your pre-constituted concept of pleasure first, how you fall, even in David's life, you see clearly those things that we must learn from or repeat. So, this old woman was not old any longer. She was new. She was brand new. She was a vessel that was filled with God's love. And she rejoiced. And the people around, they glorified God. Again, I say about the Jews, they're always looking for some kind of material explanation. Oh, a great prophet has risen amongst us. You know, if I had a chance to examine somebody, let's say, orthopedically, and I found the young person that I was, because I don't want to examine old people. I'm old myself, and it's disgusting. But a young person, and they have a limb missing, and then somebody comes and heals the person. And by healing, I mean restores the limb. Mind you, that's not happened in a long time. But should that happen, I would not question whether or not it was a charlatan's trick. Because when you can make something arise from nothing, you are God. It's a simple sign. When the water, which contains hydrogen and oxygen, turned to wine, there had to be carbon. Now, where did the carbon come from? Except the prayer of the Lord, who ordained that at this wedding they would not run out of wine. So, you don't need to say, oh, is that John the Baptist again? Is that Elijah? Who is this prophet? You know, I don't know what was wrong with the Jews, why they didn't see what they should have seen clearly. But I know there are some of you sitting the same way, and you see things every day, and you do not ascribe properly the responsibility of those things and give grace and thanksgiving to the one who has wrought them in your life. Don't be fooled. godly things come from God. Everything else is not from God. But godly things, the things that no one else can perform. Not David Blaine, not anyone else, just God. Glory be to his holy name, both now and ever, and to the age of